Fun fact, an investment contract exists if there is an expectation of profit to be made from the efforts of others. Remember that. It's going to be helpful later in this video. The band is all here. What is happening, fellas? What are we on with today?
We're going to talk about idols, the guardians of Ethereum. So there's 10,000 generated little idols. The pictures are kind of cool. It looks like nice and fancy, but they are NFTs that are intrinsically backed by staked Ethereum in the idle treasury. So, and there's a couple of interesting things. There's 10,000 of them. They were a Dutch auction that was actually voted by the community, whether it starts at 1 ETH or 0.5, and they decided 0.5. And they actually did a last price refund. So it got down to 0.25, and then they refunded everyone the difference from there to what they paid, which I actually really appreciate that. So that was a nice little... a lot of people are doing it now. It's going to be the new fad. You know how we had Dutch auctions to start off with? Now we're going to see more last price Dutch auctions where people actually get refunded, which is just, it's gas price, man. Like they're going to pay twice for gas.
Is that pain? It feels clunky. Anyway, I don't want to get into it in this video, but Danny's there. Yeah, I don't know. It feels clunky.
Yeah, so they released another smart contract for the actual refund by the looks of things. So then they have to pay gas again. So in my eyes, it went down to the lowest price, just minted at the lowest price, save everyone like $90 to $200. Whatever it's going to be. The other interesting thing, I'm hitting you with fast facts. 100% of OS royalties goes back into the Virtue stakers. And you might be able to talk more about this. Like, what is this Virtue token thing?
The main thing about this, I'm not going to get into the token just yet, because in every project, we told you guys in some of our other videos, click the link above to look at some of those. We always look at certain things in projects. We want to know what the project is about, and we also want to know the team as well. I may let Luke dig in and talk a little bit about the team, and then I'll swing back around and talk about the tokens after that.
So there's a pretty big team involved, and a couple of standouts for me were the chief architect, having had a career in the DeFi space as a portfolio manager. Now, it doesn't say too much about what they actually did, which I'd like to dig in and know a little bit more about that. But that's interesting, along with some of their head of products and the head of business development, both having sort of finance and management experience in Fortune 500 companies and a bunch of startups as well. Probably the biggest standout for me, though, was their chief builder has worked in developing back-end infrastructure for tech giants like Google, as well, again, as some early stage startups too. And I find it really interesting they've got so many people that come from a finance background, because this is quite a new type of NFT, somewhat complex, I guess, compared to your average NFT launch. But if you want to share a little bit more, Michael, on what you know.
All right, it's super interesting. It's one of those things where a lot of these NFT projects want to offer tokens and incentivize people for actually buying in. At the beginning of the video, I talked about the Howey Test. I gave you the definition of it, right? So all that means, it was a case back in 1946 that happened in Florida with a citrus farmer. But the bottom line of it is that if somebody invests in your project with expectations of making money, the SEC can classify it as a security. So that was the first red flag for me. The only way I feel like the idols would get away with it if they weren't like based in America. Let us know in the comments if you know where this is based out of. If they're based in America, they're cooked. It's gonna not pass the Howey Test and be placed as a security straight away. But that's what that token is all about. So the breakdown of the token is pretty simple. Everything that comes into the project goes into a pool, and it gets turned into something called STETH. So STETH is something that's made by this company here. So Lido.fi, just Lido.finance. It's just another staking pool, and it has different projects you can get APR and yield off of staking your ETH with them. Their ETH is STETH. So the idols NFT is using this staking pool to provide liquidity for its owners. But one thing that kind of worries me, so the way that DAOs and any staking pools work is the less actual amount of ETH that they have staked, the higher the yield that they're giving you, right? It's like, we want to get more people to actually put their money with us, so we're gonna give you a crazy high yield. But look at this chart. The more money that comes on hand, the smaller that actual amount gets. So when you're buying into this project, you're banking on this rate staying the same. But if you look at this, right? They didn't have a lot of ETH, and then as they get more, they lower those rewards for people coming on board because they don't need you. And this is just going down, right? So that's my main thoughts when it comes to something like this project. We don't have to get too technical, but I just wanted to show you an overview of what that actual staked ETH means and what it's tied to and what you're getting yourself into when you're buying this. And there's stories that came out a few days ago about the SEC cracking down on BlockFi and giving them a $100 million fine for some of the stuff they were doing. So I think 2022 is the year of the SEC really starting to pay attention to these projects. So I will be very careful when investing in this. Not trying to FUD it. I'm just kind of show you the facts and how everything works. You know what I mean?
Yep. I don't mind the SEC getting more involved because it means they're accepting these things more. And I take it with a grain of salt. It's like, it sucks that we're going to have more regulations, but also hopefully less people get burnt by dodgy launches and stuff like that.
100%. We've seen so many of these launches where people just get burnt, or people coming in like Ty Lopez that we talked about recently, and Lana Rhodes and what happened with hers. And people, it's not having experience and no guidelines, right? Like when I asked you earlier, Dan, I was like, is that legal, being able to like give people refunds back because they didn't get the money that they expected? Like, I know crypto and Web3 is all about like decentralization and those things as well, and control to the people, but that can be abused sometimes. Luke, do you have any thoughts around like regulation, and what are your feelings on regulation and more rules?
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I guess it kind of brings with it, a lot more sort of mainstream acceptance, and that with that can kind of, bring some positives. But then at the same time, it kind of takes away from the whole idea, the initial idea of kind of cryptocurrency, blockchain technology, and decentralization, doesn't it? So, I'm kind of on the fence with the whole thing, to be honest.
So when I was a kid, I think one of my first pets was like 3 hamsters, right? Me, my brother, and sister got a hamster. They started dying off, and we were just like, what happened to these hamsters? Long story short, we didn't know that you weren't supposed to fill the cage full of food like I do for my dog, because hamsters aren't smart enough not to eat themselves to death. So I feel the same way sometimes about NFTs and crypto, right? It's like you can give everybody all this money and all these things, but they just might eat themselves to death. If you guys like this video, click the link above to check out some more just like it. Until next time, we're out of here, guys. Peace.